structured interview. Structured interview is more rigid and it's more related to survey interview. When you interview people orally and still called an interview, but it is already pre-designed, basically fill in the blanks. And unstructured interview is highly, let's say, highly difficult. It's difficult one. I have done it once, and I remember I failed. You know, I was conducting an interview using a narrative inquiry, and I asked the person, "Can you please tell me your life story?" And he was looking at me and thinking for a while, and then said, "I don't know what to say. Can you ask questions, please?" I understood. Okay. Yes, we need to have some structure, though. Although it may be, as in my case, it was a narrative inquiry. I wanted to know how the person's background was influencing their decision for something today. But then I realized I need to ask them, you know, one by one. I mean, by stages of life. I was asking, "Can you tell me how did you grow up? What was your experience? How did you get Christian to be Christian? What was your family?" And then he was already sharing. But just saying, "Tell me your life story," it's too broad, too much. People may be lost. Yeah, semi-structure is the best, because when you have already in interview guide, and you can still be flexible, asking some more questions. Yeah, I think I will just skip this one because we already discussed. Okay. And unstructured, yes. There are different modes of interview. It can be done physically, face-to-face, as we normally do. And then during the COVID, we have done several interviews online, which is also possible and welcome. This is a good way also to conduct interviews. We can also do a telephone interview, email interview, if it is based on written information, not just oral information, and other ways. What are the skills that we need to have to conduct an interview? First of all and foremost is listening skills. And friends tell me, I tell you, it is not easy to listen, because you have questions in mind, you have questions to ask. And several times I was thinking that I don't really listen the person. I am thinking about what will I ask next. And this is not possible, because I will lose important data that that person says. So it's skillful listening, skillful person interaction, skillful question framing. We will talk about questions now, and skillful and gentle probing for elaboration. Why gentle? Sometimes we are asking so many questions that people feel that they are interrogated. So we need to be also careful not asking too many questions. Or sometimes we are even aggressive in asking questions. We can interrupt the person, not listen to the end, and we are just asking next question. Yeah, this is not advisable. How do we conduct interviews? Several stages that we need to remember. The first stage begins, actually there is prior stage to the beginning to conducting interview, and we'll talk also about it, about developing interview protocol. But once we develop protocol and we come already to the interview site, this is how we introduce ourselves and how we introduce our study. So we need to establish initial rapport. How do we do it? How do we normally break ice when we meet with new people? You may just crack a joke. You may ask. You may just ask, "What are you doing?" And maybe just, you know, occasional questions about what people are busy before you have come to them. Maybe you can ask about the family or anything, and share also yours, because once you share yours and you found some common interest, then persons start trusting you. Otherwise, it's very difficult to start formally. You come with your papers, with your recorder and you start interviewing. Normally people would be embarrassed and they will not be open enough. They will feel, serious, very serious. So this is stage one. It's very important to break this. So it should be like informal beginning, but still formality is there. You ask still to sign the informed consent form, but you can do it in a friendly manner, not just, with serious face as a researcher. People would be, closed. Second stage is about giving more information about your study. Tell people more about what you're doing, why you're conducting this research. Maybe you tell them how important it is that they are taking part in this research. And you tell them that there is no wrong answers. And sometimes they think that they need to give you right answer, which is not what we are looking for. We are looking for genuine data. So we need to explain it all. And then beginning the interview, we can start with contextual questions about the background of the person, some information that is preliminary information, maybe more factual information. And then interview proper, we focus on both breadth and depth. That is the most critical part. And then ending interview. Ending interview is also, we need to bring person back to where we took him from, or we took them from. We need to bring them to the reality. Sometimes the interview makes them anxious, makes them feel sad or whatever. So we need to consider dealing with people carefully and bring them back to their reality. And on a positive note, and ask for suggestions after the interview. When we finish and we go ready, we thank the participant, and then also very important, well, we mentioned how we will treat the information, and we also want to ask the person in the very end, would you like to add something? Maybe you want to say something for the last word, final word. And sometimes the last thing that they will tell you is the most important one. So we call it doorstep data. So don't fail to listen to get it properly before you leave. And then the interview protocol, we have it. It's good to write it down. Actually, for each interview, we need to write down the protocol, how we begin, how we introduce, what do we say. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not just there should be something under each of these points. What do you say about yourself, then about the study, and then about the interview process. So you need to write down everything word by word, what are you going to do. And then during the interview, you may not use those notes, but for you, you already know what you do in the interview. It's also important to keep the time, as it was mentioned in the previous slide. Sometimes we've promised one thing, we say, oh, it's just 30 minutes of the interview, and then it goes to 1 hour and 30 minutes. And people may be busy also and planning something after the interview, so it's important to check. Then informed interview protocol. I don't have interview protocol sample, but well, I mean, I do have a sample. Please, friends, help me there to pull it to the screen. Yes, I do have. I wanted to show you a recent student, PhD student in IS. I was in the ERB. I am a part of ERB committee of ERB stands for Ethics Review Board. So I was there, and I was really surprised to see such a well-designed study. So one of these things I wanted to show you is the interview protocol. Can somebody help me out there? I remember I explained to you, you just need, yeah. Pull up the Word file. I just want to show you, okay, you can use scale up so we can see in the text. If you can see the, oh yes, it's there. More, even more. Yeah, maybe like this. So there's a title, there's interviewer and the participant, and then this person wants to also to have a prayer before the interview, then pre-interview information and procedure, introduction, and you see she writes down everything, what is there. And then explanation of research design and study purpose and application, informed consent for approval. We can go down. Okay, duration of the interview, and then appreciative interview guide. And you can see that she has interview research question, and then down there is also an interview question. 2 questions. Then discovery phase. Well, this is a certain design, but I wanted to just to show you how well this interview protocol is designed, is prepared. We can go down, please. Yeah, even probing questions are there. Sometimes it's difficult to predict probing questions. It's just emerging, but still she has some ideas already what she might ask people in addition to her already designed questions. So it's good to have interview first research question and then your interview questions, because it should align interview question with research question. Okay, we can go down. Yes, and then design phase, and also this is the last research question, and we can go down. Yeah. No, next to the last. Okay, you got the idea that before you start your interview, you need to develop it well. So everything will be already on the paper. Not necessarily you read this paper before your eyes, because it will also embarrass people, but you know what is there and you know what to follow. Okay, we can go back to our presentation. Thank you so much. Why do I emphasize this is important? Because if we have some questions in mind and we did not write them down before, we may get lost, because we need to always stick to our research questions. This is the guidance for us. Okay, here we have one of the examples of aligning your interview questions with your research questions. You can see on the left side, these are research questions. And these are interview questions for different groups of participants, for the administrators, for the mentors and mentees. And these are different questions because we are asking from different groups of people. And this is good to have such a table before we begin our interview. I like this quotation. I want to read it for you. The development of good interview questions and observational strategies requires creativity and insight rather than mechanical conversion of the research questions into interview guide or observation schedule, and depends fundamentally on your understanding of the context of the research, including your participants' definition of this and how the interview questions and observational strategies will actually work in practice. So this is not a mechanical exercise. It takes whole knowledge of your study. What are you going to talk? And I tell you, as an advisor for several years of doctorate students, I see this is one of the most challenging parts of a postgraduate study and graduate study also, to develop good questions that will also help answer research questions. And sometimes they're asking too academic questions that people will not follow, as Dr. Aseli also mentioned about some funny sound question that it's designed for academics, not for academicians, not for regular people. But we need to be, to have simple questions about the experiences. So when we think about qualitative interviewing, we need to prepare questions, then follow up on unanticipated issues and ask spontaneous and unplanned questions sometimes. We see how the situation enrolls, and sometimes we see the opportunity for us to dig deeper and to ask more additional questions. The interviewer plays an active role in interview, co-constructing meaning with the participant. But at the same time, as I said in the beginning, don't try to ask too many questions or be, let's say, too leading. When we interrupt the person and we ask some other question, this is not a good tone of the interview. So we have different types of questions: background, experience, opinion, feeling, knowledge, sensory questions. They're all different questions, different types of questions in the interview. And I would like to emphasize probing, friends. I will skip all other parts, but probing is so important. Is a central element of qualitative interview. It helps in eliciting rich and meaningful data. So what is probe? Probes are questions or requests that ask the participant to provide additional information about their previous response. What is the difference between probes and follow-ups? When we think of probing question, yes, please. Please share, sister. Mm-hmm. Yes. Follow up.
My question wasn't really answered. Okay, thank you. If my question, there was a space in my question, then I will bring another question until you get to a place where I get answered. That's how I can put it.
Yes. Yeah, follow-up is when you didn't get something from the previous information and you want to make sure that you understood it correctly. So you just make a follow-up. But probing is a bit different. Let's see 6 forms of probing questions. And it's easy to remember those six forms. Silent probe, there is a silent probe. What it means, when the participant is silent, you don't break the silence. You don't try to intervene or interrupt and say something. Sometimes we try to help our participants. We feel sorry that they don't know what to say, and we think we know what they should say, and we are trying to help. No way. Better just hold your breath and just wait, because there will be something important. Well, of course, we need to observe if a person is embarrassed to reply, then it's a different story. But when they think what to say, better wait before they say. So probing is also can be silent. Encouraging probe. We can also gently say, "Wow, really? Yes, I see," or something else. Just affirmative way of listening. But also I noticed when I was transcribing my interviews, when I say so many affirmatives during the interview, I sometimes make it difficult for me later to understand what people really say. I interfere with their voice, and in the recorder it overlaps, and then there is sometimes difficult to get what people really said. So be careful with those things, not to affirm so much. Or you may do it in a way that maybe nodding or like non-verbal way. We can also affirm people when they say something. Then elaborating probe, and which is, can you tell me more about something? Clarification probe, request or clarify something. Recapitulation, when we go back and we say, asking something about the previous information. And then reflective probe, repeating a phrase that they say, but you are using the same phrase in the question mark. You are using the same the words that they just said to you. So different kinds of probes. This is examples. For example, you ask person, briefly describe your role as it relates to student learning and assessment. And when people are describing their role, you may ask as a probe, how are you involved in teaching, learning, and assessment here? How did you get involved? So you're asking related questions, but you want to get deeper. Probing questions often begin with what and how, because they invite in more details, but beware of the why questions. In many books, the experts of qualitative research, they are warning about why questions, because why question can engage a person in defensive mode. They're trying to defend themselves, their opinions, their information that they just shared. So why should be used with care? Just remember. Using follow-up questions means that you can confirm both that the interviewer has understood your question and you have understood their answer. So it helps synchronize data. Yes. There is a, please. There is a question. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. I'm trying to follow up on the risk of the why question.
Yes.
And the strategy I normally use is to try turn that into the person sharing own opinion to say, do you think that there might be a reason for this to be happening in this manner? And therefore, I leave this question open to the person to be saying, but I don't think it's happening in that manner. And then the person is the one that is leading the answer into opening the why part of it as an opinion, rather than me putting it forward as an opinion as to why is this happening. But I get the interviewee to be the one that leads herself or himself into the why.
Good point. Thank you. You know, the problem with why is sometimes it may sound to the participant as we questioning the information that he shared or she shared, that, you know, we don't believe and we try to understand more, and, you know, that's the problem. So they can get defensive. But thank you so much. Yeah, we can avoid why, but we can say it in different way. So interviewer should not press on catching every inconsistency, to not appear to be an inquisitor. So this is important, to not to interrogate people. Try to be more gentle with them. Okay, now we have a parent share engagement, and for this, I would like to ask you to find a partner, only twos by twos, because if you have three, we have not enough time. Well, actually, I asked for 10 minutes, but I think maybe we will do it in 7 minutes because we have less time. So we will ask about the experience with qualitative research. Ask yourself about their experience of qualitative research. You may ask questions: how did you become qualitative researcher? Or can you recall your first qualitative interview? How did it go? And other things related to qualitative research. So please find your partner, and we have until 3:30. Until 3:30, that's 3 minutes each only. But when you ask questions, please use those probes, okay? Please use different kinds of probes and practice what you just learned. I would like everyone to get engaged. Yes, maybe if you cannot find a partner, you can still join the pair, but then you have less time to share.
Okay, I think everyone is around another person. Just turn around.
Yeah,
slide along
simple.
the side.
Simple, yeah.
Just pair up, please.
7
minutes is very brief.
Yeah.
Let's get going.
I just want to refer to those who are watching us online. If you are on the other side of the screen, that try also to find a partner and do the same exercise and practice what I just asked. What is our friend's experience with qualitative research? Thank you. Yes. Well, the scope, this room is not so conducive to. Yeah. Personally. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's April 22, 25. Double. Not the factory. Yeah. Yeah, it's 6 years. You know, it's a gradually building capacity. To build your own farm, your sources and everything. And we will see. This is cool, you know. I think any no, no, right? Yes. Only switches. Yes. No breaks. Sure, sure, sure.
You must tell him he's Russian, he must want to.
No, no, I don't. I don't do that. No. Unfortunately. That's true, you know, it's my countrymen sometimes. I become shy.
Let me. So, friends, the time is up. Let's round up our interviews. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we need to move on. I'm sure you had an interesting discussion and you had some interesting insights about experiences with qualitative research. And I wish we could have time to share those experiences and share from your interviews. We'll see in the end. If we have a few minutes, maybe some of you could share your experience with interviews. Okay, let's move on. And we are now in qualitative interview. I would like to share some strategies that we use for a successful qualitative interview. The first one is very important, is formulating questions, as we already discussed. Should be non-leading questions. You know, we are also sometimes tempted to lead people to some areas that we really think our data is there in those areas. Should be also open-ended and clear, one at a time, not asking many questions. At the same time, asking mapping questions. Then probing, we already discussed. And then supporting the interview. Never assume, this is very important, friends, for the interview. We should never assume the answers of the participants, even though we have already literature background, we have theoretical knowledge and some baggage, but the things may be totally different when we come to the reality, to the participants and their experiences. Whatever we learned, we need to be open. So that's the point. We need to be open and not assume. Refrain from commenting on the answer or judging or leading your participants. Also refrain from summarizing the interview's answer for them. This is important. Do not summarize answers. This is not a conversation for some to find some consensus of meaning. No, they're just sharing what they know, and you need to reflect on what they said. That's it. No need to summarize for them. Be sensitive to tone and voice and body language, and allow time for the participant to reply. And tolerate silence. Pace the interview well, avoid digression, be culturally sensitive. So this is it. I think it's not very difficult. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Number two, you mean?
Thank you, Prof. The one, be
Mhm.
sensitive to the tone of voice, and then
Yes.
the last one, right? So let's say I'm the interviewer, right? And then you tend to find there are people who are, they talk too much.
Yes.
Their voice, they are
Yes.
just higher than the interviewer, right? And then maybe there's sometimes it comes across as they're being aggressive, but they are not.
Yes.
How do you control that as an interviewer?
Um,
And then they don't stop talking, and then you want to go
Mhm,
to the
mhm.
next question, and then
I
the
understand.
lady or the guys just keep on going.
Yeah.
And then how, like, okay, you can stop now, and then I can.
Interview is a social conversation. When we converse with a person, we also translate our own behavior on them. And if we also ask question with a raised voice, then they also reply with the raised voice. If they're raising voice, you're trying to lower your voice, so they will also, calm down. But of course, it depends. Sometimes people don't listen. Well, it's very individual, and you may be prepared for some surprises, and you may even gently ask, could you please speak a little bit, lower your voice a bit? But you don't have to be, so they will not feel that you are judging them or something. Anyway, this is experience, and yeah. Yes, sir. Yes.
Hi. So my question specifically is about getting clarification on an answer, right? So we're not necessarily summarizing,
Yes.
but if I'm asking a question to someone and I don't know what they mean, how do I go about getting the clarification without summarizing?
I didn't say that you shouldn't get clarification. I said you don't have to summarize, but summarizing meaning that you know what they said. But when you don't know what they said, you're free to ask. Yeah, you're much welcome. It actually, you have to do it. If you don't do it, then you go back home with no data. You need to just ask more and more questions if you didn't get what they say, and this is perfectly normal. I didn't say that you shouldn't ask questions. No. Please get me right. I don't. Yeah, I ask you to not to summarize for them. That's only thing. Yeah, but this is perfectly fine to ask some probing or a follow-up question. All right. Other consideration: listen more, talk less. Follow up on what participants say, what we just mentioned, ask real questions, clear questions that they understand, don't interrupt, keep participants focused, ask for concrete details, explore laughter sometimes, it's good to support this friendly conversation. Follow your hunches, sometimes we feel something and we need to properly engage into that. I remember one researcher who was my also good friend and advisor. I was following him when he was interviewing, I was shadowing him, and he was doing this. He felt something and he would ask some interesting questions, and I feel that it was spontaneous. And it is properly fine to try to elaborate more on something new. Tolerate silence, we already discussed it. Now we are moving to the focus group. We are already time bound and we need to soon to finish. Focus group is also an interview, but it is a bit different. What is different about focus group interview? Well, first, let's just see some definitions and then we will discuss the differences. The groups are focused in a sense on the basis of their previous experience, you see? So there are two types of focus groups, homogeneous and heterogeneous. Homogeneous is when you have participants with similar background. Let's say all school teachers or all students. This is homogeneous group. But sometimes we want to hear variety of opinions. Then you get heterogeneous group where people will be from all walks of life. There will be different people, some educated, not educated, young and old, male, female, can be also different education background. So both ways are good depending on your study, what you want to study. But they should be focused in terms of common experience. Yeah, be sure that you get the proper people in the group, because otherwise they will share something that's not really valuable for you. Focus group interview is not only well known and widely used, but also the most enjoyable and comfortable method of qualitative data collection. I'm sure you have experienced it as you raised your hands. Group interview is very exciting. Then you get something, it's good for brainstorming, for some new ideas. Perfect. Yeah. It allows participants to express their opinions in a friendly environment. So the differences between the individual and the group. In group interview takes longer, about 1 hour and a half at least, or more. Because every person should share. We don't have people who are not sharing. The focus group is about everyone participating. In depth, more detailed, focus, more scope. It covers breadth, but not necessarily too deep. Because, I'm also teaching my students that the questions that they're asked in the focus group are different. They're less personal. They're more impersonal questions. They're more about the phenomenon rather than the personal experience, because For the personal experience, you go straight to the person and ask them individually, but group is for exploring something more general, more common for everyone. So we are not going into details of the one single person because people will be also shy to share in the group. Might get individuals who don't have time for focus group. They may be also approached by individual interview. In the focus group is less individual attention, but it's also harder to coordinate, I should say. It's harder. And also to get participants for the focus group, it's also difficult. Better for individual, better for sensitive topics. Focus is less sensitive. Otherwise, people will not share much. Imagine we had a good presentation this morning about sex in one of the groups and sessions. You know, you can hardly imagine people would share it in the group. You know, there's something very, very specific and very personal. So you may not expect good results when you talk about something controversial, or at least something that people shy to share in public. Then interview can be repeated, but focus group will not be repeated. Yes, yes, please.
Thank you, Prof. Prof, I would like to comment on the point about sensitive
Yes.
questions. I've found that in the research I have done, even if a question is insensitive, depending on the sample in terms of which field is your population, at times they don't want to answer because they believe that they might be giving a position that is representative of the institution from which the interviewee is coming from. I'll make an example. My studies have been around corporate governance, and you would interview directors that are serving on various boards, others are in the private sector, public sector. And when you ask a question that talks about the behavior or conduct at board level of directors, as well as maybe their competencies, you find that you are unable to get answers that are too open.
I see.
Because the interviewee does not want to be viewed as if he or she is giving an expression about a particular board. And it's unfortunate that the board where you serve and yourself become a bit inseparable, because then the lived experience of yourself as a director
Yes.
has to relate to a board. So even if it's not sensitive, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to describe it, but it has to do with where you are coming from
Social
as a
activity, yeah.
community. Which community will you be seen to be answering on behalf of, rather than you as an individual? Maybe one needs to come up with some study around that to say, how do we deal with a situation? Because whether it's individual or focus group, but that part I have not come across an answer yet. I'm
Thank
not
you.
sure whether maybe there's some advice that you can give, because it won't be a sensitive question to say, what would be your view in regard to director competencies, in regard to digital transformation governance? And that was my study. And you will find that in most cases, directors will be talking about ICT committees they have in boards or understanding of technology. Yet digital transformation is not dealing with just technology. Technology is just one aspect of the ecosystem of digital transformation. But now when that person is answering about the knowledge of the board around digital transformation governance or whatever they might be needing as a competency, they don't really give an answer that's conclusive, because they don't want to be seen to representing the company where they serve.
Thank you for sharing this, Doctor. You know, this is important, that there are some social dynamics involved in group conversation that we may also consider, not only sensitivity, but other things that may affect also the answers. You know, recently we were studying the topic of online group interviews, and it's very interesting that online focus group interviews sometimes yield better results when we consider such dynamics and such things, even sensitive topics. People are more willing to share online rather than face-to-face. That is very interesting. That some topics you may try to get people online and do a Zoom group, focus group, which is perfectly fine, but don't get too many participants. Only 3, 5, no more. 10 participants will not work well for the online. You know, it's difficult to make them all share and people get bored. But true, thank you for this information about social dynamics that are involved sometimes in affecting our data. What we mentioned also, it's easy to repeat the individual interview, but it's not possible to repeat the group interview. So if you didn't get something properly, you might not consider getting back to the same group, because it's hard to get the group back again, and to repeat what they said is even more harder because there are many people sharing. So it's one at a time exercise and unique. Yes, and then of course it's more easy to listen to one person rather than the whole group. So this is why in focus group we recommend to have at least one moderator and one assistant. You may be a moderator as a researcher because you want to also moderate answers, questions. You lead the discussion, but you should have an assistant who will be also taking notes and supporting in terms of technical issues and whatever is involved, so you will not get distracted. Group interview is more challenging. This is one of the examples of our focus group online. It went pretty well. And people are willing to share. And as I said, young people who are normally would be very much, reserved in online, they are willing more to share because they are still behind the screen and they feel more confident, more secure.
Prof, in terms of the focus group, right? You have one moderator, and then if you want to have people can observe for you, right?
Yes.
And then how many is it acceptable? And then afterwards, how do you deal with different observations from your observers? And then if they're contradicting themselves, how do you deal with that?
Oh, you mean the assistant? Yes. Well, if the assistant is just to moderate to help the focus group, this is one thing. If you have an assistant to help you interpret data, this is different thing. Then you need to mention it in the informed consent form that you have an assistant who also have access to data. But basically, we get assistant. Well, to help you technically, you need to have person who check if the recorder is recording, and sometimes they don't. We also have, for the focus group, it's advisable to have a video recording because you may be also confused who is saying that. If in the group has 6 to 10 participants, imagine the different tone of voice. You need to identify exactly who is the person speaking. You need to identify your participants, be consistent in this. You cannot confuse it. So for that one, it's better to have a video recording. So you need a person to assist you in technical things. But also it's good to have a person who will be debriefing with you. After the group interview, you need someone to talk to and discuss how did it go, how did you get from this group interview, what are the outstanding things that appealing to you, you want to make them record. So what do you do if you're alone? You just use your smartphone and record yourself. Just debrief with yourself, reflect what you have heard, because this is important. As you fresh, these ideas are still fresh in your mind. Don't fail to record them. Okay, let's continue. Uniqueness of focus group discussion. Focus group, it's in several ways, it is really unique data collection tool. I give here 3 short quotations. Perhaps the most unique characteristic of focus group research is the interactive discussion through which data are generated, which leads to a different type of data, not accessible through individual interviews. It's also interesting that people, when they share in group, they build upon answers of others. they they construct meaning together. So it's a unique unique environment for creating a new type of knowledge. It may never happen in the individual interview. So sometimes the researchers, they use the focus group for triangulation purposes, that they see how people reflect in group and also individually, and then to compare the results. Focus group works best for topics people couldn't talk about, could talk about to each other in their everyday lives, but that don't. So that means they could talk, but they don't talk. And I think this is brilliant observation, that the group can help talk about things that are obvious, that are there, but people just don't talk about it. A primary difference between focus group research and other types of research, such as surveys, individual interviews, and laboratory experiments, is that data collection occurs in and is facilitated by a group setting. So this is a unique tool. When to use focus group? When you need general background information about the topic, or you want to even explore and even to generate your variables for quantitative research, you would also conduct focus group when you don't have a literature. We have done it several times, especially in church setting, when we have some specific questions to develop a scale, a survey scale, and we don't have a literature for that. So we just get people together and make them talk. And lo and behold, we have a good information for the variable. So this is one way to use focus group. Stimulating new ideas. Sure. Brainstorming is also good. Learning about how participants talk about phenomenon. Interpreting previously obtained qualitative results. We want to elaborate more on what we have already. Advantages: it's highly flexible. Information from many people in 1 hour or so. It's highly dense information. New insights, concepts, and related but unanticipated topics can be explored. And no complex strategies required. Unfortunately, we are arriving to the end of the presentation, and I had another activity for you, but we'll skip the activity and we'll go to the conclusions. Challenges are also there because much depends on moderator skills. This is very crucial, critical for the focus group. If you fail to have a good moderator, or as yourself as a moderator, it is very damaging and you may not get good results. Limited number of questions, and normally I ask my students to reduce their questions to 3 or 4 or maximum 5 questions, no more. Because if you have, for example, for individual interview, you may have 10 to 12 questions, for example. When you go to the focus group, you need to reduce it to half, because it takes so much time to explore each question, especially deeper and meaningful conversation. Yeah, you need to have fewer questions. Group opinion matters, only group opinion. Dominant versus, this is very important. Sometimes the person in the group that is talking too much and he's dominating in the group, or he or she, that doesn't matter. And then we need to find the strategies to make others talk as well. There is one way of dealing with it. Sit next to such person. If you sit in the opposite eye-to-eye contact, then the person will also always try to say something. But when you sit side by side, it's better for such people to keep them controlled. So yeah, it's just one technique. Then a word of caution, something that the focus group is not for. It's not for identifying right answers. Please explain it to the participants. They are not there to find the common answer. It's not for decision making, and it's not a discussion. It is just sharing their opinions in a group, because sometimes they confuse it with a discussion. It's not. Okay, with this I will have to. Okay, we are just skipping this one. I will also skip this part, transcribing the interviews, which is also important, but I don't have time for this. You know, a few things about transcribing data. First, it should be done very fast. After you have collected data, do it within several days. Don't delay months, because then you forget something important. Try to be you know, careful in recording, because if the recording is not quality, by the way, if you have quality recording, it's very easy. Now you can use several let's say apps that can help you transcribe what you say, even through Zoom. You just play your recording and Zoom will transcribe everything for you. And it's quite accurate. But when the words are difficult to recognize, then it will be difficult. So piloting is important in interviews, in focus group, and individual. Please do pilot test your interview protocol, interview guide. Need to refine and try different approaches, and then conclusion. There are many good strategies to use in qualitative research data analysis, data collection. Developing a clear interviewing plan based on research design, research questions, and goal of the research will ensure effective collection of high quality data. And I believe this is one of the most important features that we are looking at. This is my association that I represent. And this is it, friends. Thank you so much for your attention, for your good questions. I don't know, we don't have time for any more questions, I guess.
Pavel, thank you very much. I think deserves a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but if you have a real burning question, if the brain is going to melt if you don't ask it, you can raise your hand. I don't see any steam shooting out of anyone's ears. All right. A quick announcement then. Well, also, you can think about this in your own time, but if we had question time, there were two things that I noted in relation to focus group. And one was, Pavel did say that, you know, you don't summarize, and there's certain things that you don't do. So my question would be, think about you as an interviewer. What will you do and not do as far as non-verbal communication goes? How will you manage yourself in terms of body language? Because the body speaks its own language. You know, sometimes just nodding, and I know in different countries they nod differently, but a nod is a nod in your environment. Or just a smile is also revealing. So just to think about that. And then the other was a little more academic, and that is, Pavel also mentioned to you that the why question, and Dr. Nandi also gave some examples, but this is an interview, and let's say it's for a doctoral study. You were saying that qualitative research is about answering the why question. So wherein lies, you know, the sense of saying you're going to achieve answers to the why question, but you're not asking why questions. And then the other complication. Yeah. No, this is just my interpretation to get them thinking in their own time. So also Bloom's taxonomy. At the doctoral level, you can't just how and what, and you don't want lists of things. Okay, you want your participant, your interviewee, to think deep as they speak or before they speak and respond. So just to think about that. So I would ask you please for your cooperation. We will stop here. You've got a minute to make it to the auditorium, which is as you move out here, it's on the right-hand side, just before reception. They are going to do at 4 o'clock a group photograph, and then they will brief you on all arrangements for the trip this evening, the bus transport and all of this to Soweto. So thank you very much for your participation. I trust you've gained some good. Okay, yeah, there will be snacks available there as well. Okay, so please, yeah. So let's please move across very speedily. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably overemphasized, but the
No,
idea
no,
was
no.
not to ask, not to avoid the why questions, but then to use them with care. Because sometimes they may,
Yeah.
evoke the defensive reaction. Yeah. So, but it's good. It's good. Thank you so much for that. Yes.
Would we, no. I think everybody.